Good morning. Good morning. Raise your hand if you've ever had to queue for a loo in public, ever, at all. Right, but you've still had to do it once or twice, right? Now, if you've only ever had to do it once or twice, drop your hand. The rest of you keep your hands up. Or if you have to do it fairly regularly, you can also drop your hand. But if you really have to do it very, very often, keep your hand up in the air. Notice, I'm quite surprised, but the only people with their hands in the air are still women. Expert, you know nothing. Public spaces are designed and built and executed by experts, by architects, highly educated and trained professionals who still cannot accommodate the needs of the female species in public when it comes to ablutions. Why is this still a thing? I see my beautiful, sexy slideshow is doing all sorts of crazy stuff here. What I'm here to talk to you about today is the fact that as experts, everything that we know comes from the past. All our knowledge and our experience, to get all classical about it, is either a priori or a posteriori, either based on past experience or past deduction. And yet, what we're trying to do is navigate a future which is unknown, which is deeply uncertain. And to do this, we are relying on the patterns and the statistics and the observations of what has happened in the past. And as experts, all of us in this room, this is our biggest challenge, to remain relevant and to remain effective in an environment where everything is changing so fast that no one is quite sure what is going to happen next. And even the best predictions of the most famous experts are in danger of being completely inaccurate. Juanita, are we going to be able to get this? As soon
as I won the battle with the technology.
All right, it's okay. So, in order to deal with this environment, what I firmly believe is that as experts, we're going to need to embrace three distinct strategies that will enable us to not become irrelevant, but to take these wells of experience and expertise and actually do something with them into the future. And the first of these strategies is diversity. You know, the world is diverse. You've heard the term biodiversity to describe any particular area of the natural world. It exists for a very good reason. It exists to give multi-layers, to give competition, to give everybody a chance and everything a chance to grow, to evolve, to compete, to become the best expression of that thing. In human society, we tend to be a little bit scared of diversity, and we feel a little bit too threatened by the other, and it doesn't always go completely as planned. What is starting to happen more and more as we move further and further into the information age is that diversity is slowly being squeezed out of the equation as we tend to congregate more and more with like-minded people who have similar experiences to us and have similar worldviews so that we can group together into our little clubs and be very clear, that it's us versus them. And diversity is quite the opposite of this. You know, the lack of diversity is a social political ill, but it is also a human ill. It is a lack that will inhibit our ability to develop and to grow. And as experts, who of course exist in this deep well of specialization where there isn't much diversity, where all of the data and the information that we've spent decades accumulating is actually quite closely related, like third cousins getting married and propagating and becoming sicklier and weaker and eventually dying off. We need to up and face up to the challenge of embracing the difference, embracing that which lies outside of our expertise to become more diverse in our thinking, in our content, and in the way we can relate to the other in order to survive what is coming. The author Friedman claims that the world is becoming more and more flat. Anything that can be outsourced soon will be. I mean, it's already happening in the tech and the IT and the financial worlds, and a lot more of that is going to happen. And he says, in the face of this flattening of a globally integrated world, human beings essentially have three strategies, three choices. They can either choose, well, I don't know if this one's really a choice, but you can either be special, right? Like unique, an outlier, a completely fantastic example of a thing where there is no competition for you, or you can be specialized, like a brain surgeon or a particular kind of intellectual property lawyer, really deeply, deeply, deeply niched. Or the rest of us are going to have to become incredibly adaptable. Because let's be honest, out of all of us in this room, how many of us really are special? Yeah, most of us fall into the specialized category. But what do you do when a 20-year-old kid with an iPhone in their hand can access all the information that's taking you 20 years to learn and put it through ChatGPT and get the answers that we have so desperately spent our lives seeking? It cannot be something that we're going to rely on into the future. Adaptability, and of course I'm demonstrating this live with my interesting PowerPoint presentation that's doing stuff, is the skill of the future. And that's just not me, apparently that's LinkedIn saying that. Adaptability is the skill of the future, and I'm sure one of our other speakers here today will be speaking about that tomorrow morning. Yes. So what does this all mean? Well, let's go back to the toilets. Sorry about this. I have small children. Toilet humor is my specialty. What are our experts actually doing? What are we as experts actually doing? What is our business model? And what are we going to do about these kind of cognitive bias issues? Because that's actually what it is. That's what the lack of diversity in thought and content experience gives you. It gives you a form of cognitive bias. We are pattern recognition engines as a species. And that is one of our strengths, right? It means that we can very quickly go, ooh, which box do I put that into? Quick, that one. Okay, now I know it's safe, or I know it's dangerous, I need to run the hell away. But it's exactly that capacity which also makes us resistant to change, which makes us reluctant to step out of our comfort zones and into where the magic happens. And it makes us make mistakes. Because not everything that conforms to a pattern belongs in the same box. And unfortunately, as experts, when you have lots of very well-defined boxes, it means that you have an abundance of patterns to recognize, and possibly entirely unconsciously, an advanced tendency to judge and to become the victim of cognitive bias and to put all sorts of things together when they shouldn't really actually be together. It is remarkable to sit here at the beginning of the 21st century and the information age, and the average experience of 50% of the population in public is that I have to stand in a line to go to the loo when the other half can just go. Why isn't that a thing? Because we're not really thinking about the diverse experience, the experience of everyone from every angle. We tend to come at it from our point of origin. It's human nature, it's how we're conditioned. And yet, that exact tendency is what limits us, which limits our choices, limits the opportunities and the freedoms of the people around us, and our other co-residents on the planet. And it's something that we, as a room full of experts, really need to think about changing. And so quite a lot of what I'm going to talk about in the rest of my time, says he quickly checking in, are other interesting ideas and ways that you can actually escape the box of your paradigm as an expert. Social media treats us all like wannabe experts. The algorithm very quickly checks what you spend time on, what you click on, what the relations are between the things that you click on, and the subjects behind what you click on, and then it goes, right, you're a wannabe expert on, I don't know, inflating hot water bottles with your lips. And before you know it, that's all you're seeing, just over and over and over. A journalist from the New York Times did an experiment where he opened a new YouTube account and only watched kitten videos. He didn't watch anything else. And by the end of 1 week, all the suggested videos were funny animal videos, mostly kittens. Nothing else. No sport, no weird sexual innuendo, no conspiracy theories, nothing. The algorithm is fed by your action, and what it does is produce an echo chamber of like thought and like information. And if you're not very careful, before you know it, you're a full-blown tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist who has been radicalized and polarized. Because the antidote for complexity and for fast-changing situations is not specialization. It's adaptability, which is impossible without diversity. So if you're sick and tired of seeing the same old junk on your social media feed, go and watch stuff you would normally not ever watch. Go and watch those The Rock videos or the whatever, David Attenborough documentary things. And you will see that your feed will suddenly change. But if you don't do that, it's always only ever going to be more of the same. The most dangerous thing about what happens on social media is the availability heuristic. The idea that because I see all of this and so much of this all the time, that is all that exists. That is a preconception, a judgment, and a perception that leads us to act in fundamentally unbalanced ways, which is fundamentally not diverse, and leads us down tiny alleyways of exclusion and specialization that we desperately need to be avoiding. My second strategy, and you'll see why it comes after the first one, is letting go. There's a beautiful book called Letting Go, incidentally, but what I'm more talking about is, as experts in particular, it's incredibly important that we let go of our opinions, of our knowledge, of our certainty that the answer that we have is correct, said he with much certainty. The only way to discover something new is to let go of what is currently occupying that space, to make room for it, to allow yourself to move on. Great demonstration of this principle comes to us from the music industry. In the 1990s, the record companies had never had it so good. CD sales were going berserk. Everybody was so excited about the super sharp, clear, durable format called the CD, and anything that got released was selling really, really well. And at the same time, the record companies were re-releasing decades of old music onto CD in digitally remastered versions. And music fans were buying those as well. Because everyone was terrified that soon you wouldn't be able to get a turntable, vinyl would be a thing of the past, and my whole record collection would be gone. By 1999, record sales globally had peaked at somewhere around $15 billion. But something interesting was happening at the same time. A German research institute discovered a way to compress the normally enormous music digital files down to a size that could easily be transmitted on the limited bandwidth we enjoyed in 1991. And the MP3 was born. And suddenly, obtaining music was no longer dependent on going to a physical place or even on a financial transaction. Hello, Napster. All that you needed to know was where to go online, and suddenly you could get anything and everything. I mean, when I was a teenager, it was a point of honor to get the latest imported vinyl from Street Records in Braamfontein, where you would generally have to headbutt some goth-looking kid to get there first before they bought everything. And suddenly it was completely democratized. And the music industry fundamentally changed in that moment. But the record labels didn't. And they fought it, and they sued, and they litigated, and they lobbied, and they kicked, and they screamed like wild animals. Instead of going, this is inevitable, this is change, we need to be part of this process, we need to get involved, we need to help guide and mold and see where that goes. And they fought it so long, for so hard, that now, out of the dozens of record labels that existed globally, the big record labels that existed after the boom in music of the 60s, 3 global major record labels still exist. Sony, Warner, and Universal. The rest are just dead. They just didn't want to change. They wanted to hang on to the ability to print money that they currently had, and they paid absolutely no attention to the fact that for the average human being, what they really wanted was easier access to my favorite music. And so they left it up to Jobs to start iTunes, who's ended up ripping off artists for decades because of its terrible licensing agreements, which has in actual fact further contributed to the downfall of the formal record label-based business model. That's what happens when you don't pay attention and you don't let go. It's difficult, because the same thing happened to Kodak, and they couldn't let go of film because it was their fundamental cash cow. What people don't realize that Kodak was actually in the business of digital cameras. They made one of the first commercial, but they still imploded because they couldn't let go of film. They just didn't, they wouldn't, and it killed them. On a more personal level, that's me in 1995. Great hair. Back then, I was a band manager, and the prime ambition of every artist that I ever had any business dealings was to get a major record deal. It was the holy grail. It is why we were here. That was going to get us cocaine and girls and an easy lifestyle forever. Except that because of all the shenanigans going on behind the scenes, record labels were not just signing as much new music as they had been. They didn't feel they could afford to experiment. So they were signing artists who already had a track record of financial success. And most of the artists I managed, trust me, did not. And so they needed to change their ambition, to adjust. And most of them didn't, which is why you've never heard of any of the bands I managed. Or maybe I was just a bad manager. And the crying shame about it is that many artists still have not. If you ask me what has taken the place of the traditional major label record deal, it's very hard to say, honestly. There are many options: crowdfunding, digital only, weird hybrid digital physical releases, because hey, vinyl hasn't died, have you noticed? Or 360-degree deals, where you sign to one organization who's your manager, your booking agent, your merch, and your publisher, and your record label, and your distributor all in one. That doesn't sound dangerous to you. You obviously have not got out into the world much. The only truism that remains from that era of the music industry is this: when a new piece of technology hits your marketplace, your old business model becomes obsolete. The only challenge in front of you when that happens is, how fast can you let go of the old one so that you can make room for the new one? Expert, you know nothing. Think about AI and think about us. What is our business model as experts, as speakers, people with a specific story, a specific reason why we want people to come and speak to us? Hopefully, some of us are special. We're most certainly specialized. Are we adaptable enough? Our competition in this room here is not who is in this room here. Again, it's that kid on his iPhone or her iPhone who can access that information at the drop of a hat. It is an AI algorithm which, thanks to machine learning, can learn everything we know and we've published and shared in a fraction of the time that it took us to learn it all, and then serve it up in bite-sized, easily digestible chunks to anybody who asks the right question online. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because sooner or later, even brain surgeons will be out of work. Particularly brain surgeons, because they're so niched, because they're so specialized. Waiters, on the other hand, will have job until the end of days, because their job is too diverse. The data set required to train AI is too massive. We'll get there eventually, I'm assuming, when we can have the whole moon as a data center to train. But for now, these are the people who are actually at risk. Can we let go of this idea that your brain surgeon needs to be a human so that your brain surgeon can do something else and become someone else? Very human reaction. Strategy number 3 is to look ahead, to let go of the past, to let go of what we know, what we're even doing right now in this room, so that we can be honest and clear about what is coming down the highway towards us. You know, our brains are fantastic things, but they are also the biggest thing that limits us. When the automatic teller machine was invented, there was uproar in the banking industry because so many people lost their jobs. And yet now in the world, there are more behind-the-counter bank staff than before the ATM was developed. And it's a higher skilled, better paying job than it ever was before. The ATM does the dog work, the boring, story, horrible, bleh, no one wants to do that work. And the people behind the counter are there to help you with your very special, difficult, complicated, and unique problem. It's a very interesting model. And if you look at the history of technology, this is what has happened over and over again. Maybe next time we come to a conference, you won't be seeing me here, but you'll be seeing a beautiful AI-generated hologram doing exactly this after scraping a whole lot of information about change from the internet. The problem isn't a lack of ideas. It isn't a problem of originality or creativity or novelty. The problem is, as John Maynard Keynes says, letting go. Letting go of what we already have so that we can look to a future, uncluttering our mindset from the litter of 200 years of industrialization and saying we need to think in an information age way, not a let's follow the rules and get the same end result over and over and over until we are all dead, because we will be. The only choice we have as human beings is to become that unexpected massive change, to become Nassim Nicholas Taleb's black swan. If you are reacting to unexpected change, you're playing the wrong game. You need to emerge from your comfort zone and, sorry, Facebook meme, go where the magic happens. We need to be embarked on change. It is a constant. Thank you, Heraclitus. And if we love to act like it isn't, because then we can standardize things, and then we can have rules, and we can get the same effect over and over and over again, and we don't want that anymore. So please, grab your smartphones. I know you've all got them there. Turn on your camera, and please scan this QR code, because I want to know how you feel now about the topic for my talk today, Expert, You Know Nothing. Once you've scanned the code, you should see a sort of browser-like page with a white space in the middle with the statement, Expert, You Know Nothing there. And you'll see there's colored dots. If you tap on those, you'll see you can draw different colors on the screen, and there's a slidey thing to change how big the line is, right? So your job is to just feel the statement, Expert, you know nothing, and then to draw how that makes you feel with your finger on your screen. And Juanita's going to switch to the browser now, and we'll be able to see how you feel emerging in real time on the screen, if the tech does what it's supposed to do. Thank you very much.
David, there we go.
There it is. So my immediate instinct to say, my God, I really made you a lot angry. Look at all that red.